Rishi Pachos. Yes, we'll be finishing up Solution Progress. And with my parents and else. Next day or so, and we're going to go back to Shin Chav Zayin. That's the next, a little bit kashur to the sugis we're doing now. So the next thing we'll do is Pasha Shin Chav Zayin. Next day or so we'll have my Makainis for that. That's it. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Shin Chav Tes and the sugi of Sivkani. So we have a Mishnah in Parak Aleph, the Challah, Mishnah Hey. It's Mavur that it's a Patur. The Challah called Sivganim. And the Mishnah's Mavur, in order to have that Patur, it has to be throughout the process of making this bread-like thing, whatever it is, we'll see Sivganim, meaning it has to be Tchilasa v'Seifa Sivganim. If at any point it has a Shem Isa, a Shem Lechem, that's ready enough to be Mechayev. Whether that's at the beginning of the process, Tchilasa Isa or Seifa Isa, either one's enough to be Mechayev. And this has something to do, obviously, with the fact that when the Torah is Mechayev, Mitzvahs Challah, it includes both shlavim of hachanas lechem. It's the reishis haris v'seichem, that's the gilgal, the lisha, the siyas ha'isa, and also the lechem ha'aretz kemufurish b'kra. So both of these stages have to have some kind of kiyum of isa and some darga, and that's the Mishnah Kipshuta Yisei. What is the p'tur of sufganin? After all, it's chameshis mini dagan. You need it. You make some kind of bread-like thing. So what's the p'tur? So the Gaon himself points out that there's sounds like there's a machlokes rishonim. The Rash in the Perish Mishnah speaks from a Sifri that he darshan the drasha from the pasuk mi lechem haaretz. Mi lechem haaretz, what I call lechem haaretz. That even though Sifganin do epis have a shem lechem, but it's not all lechem. There's a certain kind of lechem called Sifganin that's nisma'it from the pasuk. And the Gaon is medayik that Shitas Rabbeinu Tam in Tosfos in Tzachma and Amidvav and Beis is before not like that. That there's a p'tur lechem. Anything that's sufganin don't have a shem lechem b'chlal. It's not pshat that there's a sug lechem and a sug lechem not. Sufganin are not called lechem, and that's why they're mufka from chiyav challah. And we'll see maybe if there's some kind of tliya that Tosfos and Rabbeinu Tam has that explanation of lechem and not being lechem. Sufganin are not lechem b'chlal. Yidach the Rash who holds that it is lechem, but it's not. It's mi lechem aretz. It's the sug lechem which is potter. Klape ma'advar ma'murim. The famous machlokes between the Rash and Rabbeinu Tam. How pasha to learn this Mishnah? How to learn the Mishnah? And how to learn the P'tur of Sivganin. That Rabbeinu Tam learns the Mishnah Kipshuto Kaviyachol. That when it says Tchilasoi Sivganin, it's referring to a Metzias, a type of Isa, a type of thing, that the Metzias of it is Sivganin, which is what? Blila Raka, that's what Rabbeinu Tam says. If you have a Blila Ava, that's already an Isa. Tchilasoi Isa is Chayev. So Tchilasoi Sivganin means it's a runny batter. Let's say, for argument's sake, it could be that's also Machlok Yisrael, but let's say Blila Raka, it's a runny batter. Tchilasoi Sivganin is the runny batter. So, says Rabbeinu Tam, that's what the Mishnah means. If it starts out as a batter, like a sponge cake, a torte cake type of batter, so that's Tchilas Sivganin. But if you put it in the oven, that's Seifa Isa. We passing like a Yochanan, that even if you don't put it in the oven, but you put it on a pan, like a pancake, let's say, and it's not deep frying, you just spray it with a little oil, you put a little bit of oil, it shouldn't burn, that's called Seifa Isa. That's Derech Afias Pas, L'Shitas Yochanan, Ulahalach. And Tchilas Isa, Lefi Rabbeinu Tam, is the Tchilas Isa B'Seifas of Karm Lefi Rabbeinu Tam is if you have an Isa Kipshutai and Seifas of Ganin is when you're Mevashal the Isa, Bishal is Seifas of Ganin, and that's also Chayev according to Rabbeinu Tam because it was Tchilas Isa. So even though you boiled it and deep fried it, but if you started out with a real dough, like what we say, like the Israeli sufganiyot, kipshuta, there's different ways to make them, but kipshuta, you have a blila ava, and they don't bake them at all, they just boil them in the water. According to Rabbeinu Tam, that's too bad, you also isa, so that's chai. That's the Mishnah kipshuta l'fi Rabbeinu Tam. In the Idach, das Rav Rishonim, the Rash, the Ramban, Rashba, and the dive like that from the Rambam, is to learn the Mishnah ba'ifan acher. And that is that the Mishnah is not talking b'chlal, the Ramban is at least before like that, the Mishnah is not talking b'chlal about tchilas sufganin, that there was a metzius of a blila raka, that you had a batter, and then you took the batter and you poured it onto a pan like a pancake. That's not the discussion in the Mishnah. Rather, and we'll get back to l'shitasim, what is the din of blila raka l'shitasim. But kipshuta l'shitasim, that's not what the Mishnah is talking about. And when the Mishnah says tchilas sufganin, seifa isa, tchilas isa, seifa sufganin, it's talking about das b'nei adam. It's talking about what he had in mind, what was his intent as he was preparing this dough, and as he was getting ready to make this bread Mizonos product. And the pshat of the Mishnah is like this: Tchilasa Isa, he has a real Isa. That's the Ramban's diak. Isa shetchilasa sufgan. We're talking for sure. The whole Mishnah is talking about a regular dough. So when a person makes dough, he has in mind one of two things. If he had Tchilasa Isa means he had in mind, I'm going to break bread. And he changes his mind and he says, I'm going to boil it and make sufganiyot. I don't mean sufganiyot, that's just the typical term. I think that's one classic example we all are familiar with. You take a blila ava and you boil it in deep fried in shem. So that's Tchilasa Isa, the Seifa Sufganin, that I had in mind to make bread and I changed my mind to make sufganiyot. And who I didn't L'idach Isa. Tchilasa Sufganin means that I had in mind to make sufganiyot, to boil or deep fry the dough, and I changed my mind to make challah. And in both of these instances, according to Shitas Harash Ramban Udimayu, you're chayiv challah. Because even though, in the end of the day, the Rash holds that once you take that blila ova, that real dough, and you boil it, it's mafkiya the shem lechem. It never gets a shem lechem to begin with. The brachas mezaynis, you can't even be kaveh suda, and it's really ois. It really has a din of seifa sufganin. But says the Rash, it's too late. Since it's chilas darka, your das was to make bread. That das is what's mechal the chiv on this isa, and you can't get rid of that chiv. The only time you're pater, according to the Rash and Ramban, is if you're in a sufganiyot factory, or you're making sufganiyot, and you know mitchilas lisha, you make the lisha, even if it's a blila, and you plan on boiling it, and you do boil it, and you do deep fry it. So that's the case of tchilas sufganin. You have das to make sufganin and seif sufganin, and that's the one pasha case. That's the one often a case where there's machlokes Rashi ve'enu tam. In the case, let's say the typical case of sufganiyot, meaning you made a blila ava, you had in mind the whole time, I'm going to take this blila ava and make sufganiyot. I'm going to deep fry it in oil. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it's not telling your das. Since it's not a blila raka, you made a blila ava, that blila ava is chayav miyad. She'ein, according to the Rash, it's telling your das, and even though you made a blila ava, even though the mitzias was kaviyachal tchilasa isa, according to the Ramban and those Rishonim, the mitzias of tchilasa isa is not enough, because your das was to make sufganiyot, and you followed through, and you deep fried it, and that's going to be patur mchal, and that's the nafkamina. The halach in Shulchan Aruch over here, the sheet in Shulchan Aruch only the sheet of the Rash and the Ramban is brought. The Shach says to Machar Nenutam, and Shulchan Aruch Archaim Kusameches Ugabi Brachos. So there's also machlokes what the bracha on the sufganiyot is. It does apply by maitzit to the Mesiris. There, the Mechaber Ma'aser brings both sheets. Fine. So that is pasha the Tzursa the Shmaitza. How to pasha learn the taich of Mishnah Hay. We'll get back to Mishnah Dal. The first time sufganin, not sufganiyot, sufganin. The first time sufganin are mentioned were in Mishnah Dalid, where the Mishnah cryptically is just listing a whole list of different peturim and throws in three different types of, it sounds like baked goods, like the Rambam in Perush Mishnayos describes them. Iskritin, duvshonin, sufganiyos, sufganin. Sufganin is different types of either thin crackers, things that are either nilush b'dvash or fried b'dvash. That's Mishnah Daled, which we're going to get back to. Is there a special chiddush in Mishnah Daled? Is it just a hakdama to Mishnah Hay? We'll see. Fine. So Zechinu Ladin, this machlekes, that there's a Mishnah according to Beinu Tam that's talking about a patur. The only patur is if it's a blila raka. It starts out as a blila raka and then you put it into some kind of liquid. You boil it in some kind of liquid. Mashenken, according to the Rashi, you could even have a patur based on your das on a blila oven. Fine. So if we learn the Mishnah like that, so what would be the dim? Fi the Ramban and Fi the Rash that the Mishnah is talking about someone who made a blila oven. He just changed his mind to him. Changed his mind to her. What's the dim with shitasam about a blila raka? That's not before the Mishnah comes out, right? Lafi the Rash and the Ramban that the whole Mishnah is talking about someone who changes his mind about an isa, about a regular dough. What would be the din? L'shitasim if you have a batter. Are they masking to Beinu Tam? They're not masking to Beinu Tam. So l'maisa nechluku b'zeh harishon. And it's in Psach and Lamed Zayin in the sugi over there. And in the Rabbeinu David, and there's a big footnote there in the Rabbeinu David printed in this sefer. So they bring the Rabbeinu David with the Ha'aras. So in the Rabbeinu David over there, it's before that the Das HaRamban. The whole discussion was about a blila ava, which you change your mind this way and that way. But blila raka, which never had a gilgul b'chalal, it's part of your never chayin, even if you bake it. And the whole din of soifa isa that you put it in the oven has nothing to do with blila raka, according to the Beinu David. They bring over there that's also mavur like that in the Meiri. The Meiri is also mavur that according to this base medrash that the shaila is your das in making the blila ava. When you make a blila raka, so you have your pancake batter, or whatever kind of batter to make your sponge cake, any type of loose batter, according to many Rishonim, B'das and Ramban and the Rash, which is the Iker Sheet to be passing like, you'd be patur from Chal and Ganze. The Maram Chalav is before not like that. What's that? Vaist Oyster understanding. There's a Tanai of Gilgul, right? Reish Yisseichem. I mean, it's not just an al das game. Lechem also, right? But there's with a Tanai of
Meaning lechem would just mean you can be mafresh later on a regular time.
Lechem can mean a lot of things. Lechem can mean there's a chiddush called Tzir of Sal, and we have a lot of chiddush we learn from Lechem. But Maisa, this does say Tishkin Lechem because you skipped the stage of Gilgul, so you're potter. When Ram Chalav is Choylek, Halach L'Maisa, we do not pass like Rabbeinu Dada. Halach L'Maisa is the first in Shulchan Aruch that Isa Sheb B'Lila Saraka, even if you have kipshuta, even a portable batter, you have your pancake batter or your sponge cake batter, and you take it Tchilasei Sufganin, which is the Tchilasei Sufganin of Rabbeinu Tam, really, but Metzias of a B'Lila Raka. The Afa B'Taner Oiba Machvas. We pass in even a machvas, we pass like a birchnan as long as it's not deep fried. You can throw them on a pan like a pancake. It's basically describing a pancake. So that is chayeves bechal, which is like some rishonim das the Ramban. But it's not a davar muchra in the rishonim at least. What would be shitas made of shitas Ramban by blilarak, by pancakes? Reason being because shita some the Mishnah Be'emes there's no discussion about a blilaraka, and that's what's before. If you learn all the sugyas and brachas lamed zayin, psachim lamed zayin, and you see the taisus in. This was basically Rabbeinu Tam's way of saving himself. Rabbeinu Tam who held that it's not telling your das, and that when you make a blila of it, it's automatically chayiv. Rabbeinu Tam got stuck on a few things, so every time he got stuck, Rabbeinu Tam said, "Oh, blila raka." We keep seeing the answer from the Bali Taisus. That's Rabbeinu Tam's way out. So we don't see. There's no Gemara and there's no Mishnah that we know clear that should be chayiv and challah such a hechidim. So that's why it's be'emes machlok tishon halacha l'maisa pancakes. Let's talk about that's the typical case of blila raka shesoifa. Isa, Seifa is passed because we, again, the Shita Seinu, as long as you're not deep frying, putting it onto machvas, has a din of Afiyah. So Mela, that is a din of, that's Mechuyev in Challah, and that's Mezonis. Gabi Paskis, then that's an interesting shayla. If you're allowed to have 5 or 7 pancakes for breakfast, there is that Kviyas Suda in Kamakum. Okay. Fine. So that's the basic source of the Shmaitza, and that's what leaves us unclear, Lafi, the Shitz Ramban, what is the din of a Blila Raka, Nechel Korisha. So now, if we're going to try to understand what is the Shoresh of Tzmachloikus, so there's a lot of read about this in Nachrena. I think just the simplest way to say it, without trying not to add too much outside information, but if you just push it La Misboinin in the Etzem Verter of the Rashi Rabbeinu Tam, we see, I say this in Machlokes, yes.
Is it a kasha that the way Rabbeinu David understands the Rash from Teresa in these other cases?
Yes. Meiri asks that question, makes chilukim. In the Haggadah there he brings that they ask from Teresa, which is Blioraka, and then it's still Chai. And so the Meiri starts making 3 dagas. That if there's something that's Blioraka, but it's not so Raka. It could be that's why the halacha in a chanami we don't make those chilukim. We taka paskin like in our father. In a chanami, blila raka that you bake it, and the day is taka chay, and the pancake you don't have to start clearing how rach exactly the isa is. And in a chanami, that's one of the kashas.
Is it a Isa Shulchan refers to it as Isa Raka?
Isa Raka.
Blila Raka. Isa Raka.
So you're saying it's before it's a little bit more than just
not like the Rambam.
It's not like a batter. It's
something thicker.
It's like cookies. What? It's not like the Rambam.
No, it's a batter. I think it's koil also better. Okay, we'll get to that fight in a few minutes. What exactly Blila Raka is here? So what's happening is like this: is that what the shita of the Rash is. What is the Rash saying? What is he being mechadish? The taich of what the Rash is being mechadish when he says you can make a blila oven, which is the normal dough. That's the first stage in making bread. And the Torah says that the chi of challah is certainly chal before afiyah. It's chal in that first stage. Reishis arisay seichem. Zaktashi kishet talushu. When you're lusher isa, that is when the chi comes. And then already, if you want to take a little bite of that, isa, so then you're eating tevel. So that chiyuv is chal b'shas. He said, what the Rashi is being mechadish when he says that if your das when making that isa is to make sufganin, is to boil it, to make sufganiyot, that it's not chayiv from right now. What the Rashi is being mechadish is that the chiyuv that comes at the tchilas, at the first shlav of bread making, is only if you actually are engaged in making bread. Meaning, what does it mean your das is to make bread as opposed to your das makes sufganim? It means, when the Torah said reish seichem, it said kishet talushu. When you start the isa making process, but that's only when you are actually in shlav aleph of making bread. Who's to determine if you are in shlav aleph of making bread or in Shlav Aleph of making Tikkun Hashim, for Sira Kapanim. Who determines that? Your das. Pashut. So Kish Dalushu, Lechem Haaretz means when you start the process, Shlav Aleph of making bread. Says the Rashi, you have to be engaged in Oisik and actually making bread. Once you're making bread, says the Rashi, so the Torah stops right at the first Shlav. So let's look at him right now. What does he do? He's lush. What's he being lush for? His das is the lush for bread. So that means he's making bread right now. Stage 1 of making bread is also chayiv. That's the Rashi's chiddush. But it has to be stage 1 of pashut b'foil pshuta kimashmo balabadish making bread. That's all. And the male, if your das is something else, so even though you look the same as that guy over there who's making a blila ava, you're making the same blila ava. But since lamaisa what you're doing, even though l'chayr in the Rashi's hechetim, so it's not muchach b'chlal. There's no maisa of moichichin Allah. But lamaisa, it's not what you're oisking. You're not making bread. You're making suvganin. You're making al das to put in the kutach, v'chule, whatever it is. And that's the Rashi's rayas, or the Rishonim of any rayas, from Kutach, from Isis Klovim, from Amnas Lechalek, that your das does play a role. And the Maisa, the Etzem Taicha, what he's saying is that you're not oisik in making bread. And in order to be Chayiv Chal, you have to be oisik in making bread. Mashi Enkein according to Beinu Tam. It's a little less clear according to Beinu Tam, that's why the Emes and Slap to Rishonim, the Chalek Rishonim das Beinu Tam, like the Darki Moshe himself brings. Mashi Enkein according to Beinu Tam, it's very clear that even though Lamaisa, you're not oisik in making bread. You're rather oisik in Almanas, says Rabbeinu Tam, even to make sufganim. Or kipshuta, as we'll see, kipshuta and halacha, and that's also first in Sefer Yashar Rabbeinu Tam, as we'll see, that's machlokes Rishonim. But even if you're oisik in making lakshin, which also requires a isa alma, making noodles, which has nothing to do with making bread. Kuli alma loy pligi, noodles or mazonis. The sufganin, Rabbeinu Tam point happens to hold is taka hamoitzi, which, as we'll see, that's machlokes Rishonim, how to touch up what that Rabbeinu Tam means to say by that. But the Maisa is, Rabbeinu Tam, let's assume the Pashtos, like it's Bur and Rabbeinu Tam, and most Rishonim, and like the Darki Moshe brings from Mordechai, that according to Rabbeinu Tam, even if you're making Isa and you're not engaged in making bread, you're still chayiv. So what is the criteria for Reish Zerei? Is it any Isa Ava, any Blila Ava? Obviously not, because then we have 10 kashas from the Rishonim. Because the Rishonim point out all the halachas that Rabbeinu Tam is masking to. Lamashal, Isa Saklavim. Blila Ava, then you feed it to the dogs. Or isa ha'asuya lechem asuya lekutach, that you're making also blila ava, but then you're just going to just dry it out in the sun and crumble it up and put it into your dip. And you're not making bread. So there are definitely many hechetimtzas where Rabbeinu Tam is masking, that even though, so it's not just a pure criteria of just any blila ava. If we're going to answer the Rishonim's kasha, which we need to do, so then it's clear that Rabbeinu Tam is also, it's not enough that you just have a bli love. Not every bli love is chayiv. And that's l'chor is going to have to be the kivun to answer up the kasha of Rishonim on Rabbeinu Tam. What's klar according to Rabbeinu Tam is that as long as you're making a bli love and you're making it for food, for making a bread-like food, let's say, that's enough. Even though you're not making bread. Why? Because l'maisa b'derech klal, the regilos is like the lashon hatosis lamed zayin psachim. If an isa ava in normal circumstances is something that it's the derech and the regilos, that this normally ends up as bread. So as long as you make an isa that it's derech, not like the rash, the lashon I used here is oimid, but according to the rash, it's more than just oimid. You're actually making bread. You have to be making bread. If you're not making bread, you're not chayav kal. According to Rabbeinu Tam, you don't have to be making bread. I'm making noodles. Let's assume like the pashas of Rabbeinu Tam, the word Sefer Yashar. I'm making noodles. Makes sense. But lamaisa, I made an isa. So how could the Torah be machayiv me making noodles? I mean, the Torah says you lechem haaretz. So the teretz is, but you made an isa that b'derech klal. That's the derech of such an isa. This is the isa that people make bread with. You're not making bread with it. That's okay. That's the Rashi shita. You have to be making bread. According to Rabbeinu Tam, you don't have to be making bread. And afal pika you're chayiv and challah because it's an isa that's darker liyos. And that's how Rabbeinu Tam, that's how Tosfos teaches the din of Afui B'Taner and Lam Zayim Zachem, that it's the derech of Tosfos Isha, that's enough to be Mechayiv according to Rabbeinu Tam. What? Yeah, it's Mavur Rabbeinu Tam Sefer Yashar that he starts handling the things that have Teresa Nama, not Teresa Nama. Now, there's a Talmid Rabbeinu Yoina that the Darki Moshe quotes.
What does it say in the Sefer Yashar that you had over there?
All it's Michad is that he's pushed the following shayla. If you make noodles according to Rabbeinu Tam, so the pashtus is, according to Rabbeinu Tam, you're takachai. That's Mavur and Tosfos and Kam Kaimis. There's a Talmid Rabbeinu Yoina and Barachas who Kipshuta, if you read it carefully, that's what Chaznish points out, not like the Pan of the Years who's Tonea on the Darki Moshe, but the Talmid Rabbeinu Yoina who goes with Shitas Rabbeinu Tam and Barachas and explains his Shita and explains his Shita. meaning the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam, and he explains what's the Rabbeinu Yonah is one of the few makars we have to explain what's the pshat in what is the pshat klapi the Rishonim kasha from Isas Klovin and Isa Suyin Lekutach. How is Rabbeinu Tam going to answer those shalos?
Like Isa's Klovin is the exact same Mirkam as a regular Isa?
It's a blila oven. It's a blila
No,
oven.
but it's not, and it's not a Shaila. It's not nothing to do with Das. Everyone sees it. Not Noisig and Lachem. Forget Derech. If an Isa's clothing is made out of a different...
No, it's regular
It's
Isa.
not.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because they speak Niblas and Yiddish themselves, so that's fine.
So it says so the Rabbeinu Yonah is asking that question. In Taimer, I feel also Kavin and my part it's a blila oven mitchila. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it's a chiv deraisa. You made a blila oven, reishis deraisa seichen, and it's a blila oven. Blila oven harei is something like we're saying. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it's an isa. That's the isa which b'derech klal makes pass. You're not oiskim pass. That's Rabbeinu Tam's shita keneged derash. Yishloimar shaf bishul bisa ava kibin shalei nasis ledas achila. Elo lacharich osav or v'lasis mena kutach. Put it to your kutach dip. Petura. Azoivi ba isas klovin. That if something the Royim will not eat from, Aval Bishop Milasa Ava, according to Rabbeinu Tam, even Shalei Nasis La'achilas B'nei Adam Potter. So it's Mavur L'char is this far in Rabbeinu Tam, that as long as you're in a matziv where you're making food, people food, and the people food is in Isa Ava, which B'derech Klal, when people are engaged in preparing food, when you're engaged in making for yourself food, and usually this type of Isa makes bread, so then you're chayiv even if you're not making bread. The Rabbeinu Yonah takes a little bit of a different kivun in Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Yonah says that no, that lafizeh, if you understand this mahalach to answer Rabbeinu Tam, klape Isas Klovin and Kutach, so then the hemshech kipshuta Rabbeinu Yonah says that according to Rabbeinu Tam, lakshin is pater from Challah, even according to Rabbeinu Tam. You had an Isa Ava, and you're making people food, you're making spaghetti. Rabbeinu Tam describes all the different French types of noodles. So after picking your potter according to Rabbeinu Tam, and what's the pshat? Because the Rabbeinu Yonah understands the Rabbeinu Tam to be saying even one step weiter, that it has to be not just that you're making an Isa Ava that's not just an Isa Ava, it has to be an Isa Ava that you're making kederech pas. Ulafizeh would come out that the emes Rabbeinu Tam come out like the Rash, because the only machlokes we have is Rabbeinu Tam holds that if you make sufganin, al das to make sufganin, the Rash patters because you're not making bread. Rabbeinu Tam holds your chayiv. Rabbeinu Tam holds sufganin our bread. The bracha on sufganin, meaning if you take the blila oven, you boil it, you fry it, whatever it is, frying it might be a shayla, but at least if you boil it, is hamaitzi. So lafi Rabbeinu Yonah, ish makam ladan bazeh, but kipshuta, the facts are that according to Rabbeinu Yonah, what comes out, if you learn Rabbeinu Tam like that, so it's mamish like the Rash, and it's all telling your das, and you have to be almanas to make bread. And fakir, Shittas Rabbeinu Tam is a bezunder. He has a different issue with the Rash. The Rash held when you make sufganin, it's like you're making kutach, and it's like you're making Yisas Klovin. Rabbeinu Tam said, I'm asking it to you 100%, but you're just wrong. Because when you make sufganin, you're not making kutach and Yisas Klovin, sufganin hamoitz lechem and haaretz. So you're mamish making bread. Lo yishna if you put it in the water, lo yishna if you put it in the oven, it blibes hamoitzi, so mainly you are making bread. So then there is makom to say at least in Rabbeinu Tam, yish makom l'fal b'zeh, that if you hold that the lakshin is patur, if you're Rabbeinu Tam, so then Rabbeinu Tam just holds sufganin in his bread. Now again, the pashas in Rabbeinu Tam, and it's Sev Yoshim Rabbeinu Tam. The Rabbeinu Tam is machalik, and hamoitzi and challah are not habhatalia, and that's why lakshin and all the noodles are takachayv in challah according to Rabbeinu Tam, even though they're mezoynos. And that's kefisha his barnu, but that's Rabbeinu Tam al derech is Rabbeinu Yonah, just not that far. You know, al derech Rabbeinu Yonah, what I mean to say is that Rabbeinu Tam is masking if you're not oisik in making people food at all, you're making isas klovin, or you're not oisik in making an actual meichel, but rather just something to crumble up and throw in to be a tuffle to your kutach. That's not nechshav b'chlal the reish sari seisechem. That's not the normal isa. You're not being oisik in making a normal isa, on which we say, oh, this is an isa which the derech klal goes to bread, so you're chayiv b'chol oifin, because you're making dog food or you're making a dip of some sort. But berega that you're making isa, and you have to yesh la'ayin exactly the right nusach. But berega that you're making an isa ova for achilas to make a meichel out of this isa for bnei adam, that's already darkoi lihi pas. And even though you personally are not making a pas, you're making a noodles, you're going to be chayiv according to the Rabbeinu Tam. Yes.
So, it's in the Mishnah, according to Rabbeinu Tam, chilas is sufgan on the sefer Isa, or for there, it will be chayiv.
According to Rabbeinu Tam.
Yeah. Now that it's an Isa Abba, you want to make Isa's clothing, and you're nimlach, with the Ptor,
Nimlach which way?
and you can eat it now. Would the Ptor blind because it was worse because it's an Isa Abba? The end of the day, you were very close to Tzuras Lechem, and yet it's Pater. But now that you're nimlach,
would he be masking because it's soy for lechem? Let's say now you're able to not taka, make it, eat it, or make it properly. Not kutach.
According to like from the Rash, that would be the Rash also. Once you're nimlach from sufgan in Isa oven, when you're nimlach from sufgan to make Isa, Seifa Isa is enough. According to the same Seifa Isa. Okay. So that's what. So if we're not going to accept the Rabbi Yehuda, which Lamaisa, the Moshe brings both shitas. He brings the Mordechai held the Lakshin is Chayav according to Rabbi Yehuda, and that Rabbi Yehuda comes out the log even according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is Makar Rabbi Yehuda much closer to the Rash. But if Kipshuta, like the word Rav Yishanim Das Rabbi Yehuda, so then we have to say this chiluk that according to the Rash, the Chiyuv Challah is only when you're making bread. Pshuta Himashma Pashat Oisik and making bread. Shenken according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're not making bread, you're making an Isa, it's darker lihiyois pas, darker lihiyois lechem, and that's enough to be mechayiv you, even if you personally are deciding to make noodles out of it, as long as you're making two tanoim, food, not just to crumble up as an ingredient for your kutach, and not people food, not that it's for b'nei, achilas b'nei adam, like the Magabi that we do hold like the Rebbeinu.
Then according to the Rebbeinu Tam, it holds that you would be putter on Isa's clothing, all these things that you're
Just do those. Isa's clothing.
All those things you're going to be putter on, it could still be the chastity. It just means one of the tnaim in having the chiyuv.
The shas, meaning if you're nimlach, yeah. It could be Seifa Isa according to Rebbeinu if you don't make Isa clothing. So I'm just saying, so it could be Lefizeh, we can understand the goyim. The goyim at the beginning of the Siman points out that the Rash and Rabbeinu Tam, like we mentioned, have two different droshes for the P'tur Sufganim. Is it mi lechem v'loy kol lechem, like the Rash says, or is it lechem, or is it just lechem that Sufganim heistishkin lechem according to Rabbeinu Tam? That's the two droshes. So I'm explaining it could be it's l'shitasim, because the Rash, the Etzem is saying like this: you have someone making Isa. And this is an Isa, which is darker lihiyois pas, meaning this b'mitzius, when a person makes an Isa ava in the Rash's world, he's in the first shlav of bread making. He personally happens to not be doing that. He's personally not Isaac in bread making because his das is to make it something else. But the Maisa, it's the mitzius of tchila. This is shlav. If you look at him, you look at the guy making pas, they're doing the exact same thing. They're being lush and kneading, and they're in shlav rishon of pas. So that already is an asik of lechem. Says the Rash, but mi lechem v'loy kol lechem. You're right. We see here a lechem making process, making an isa oven just like he's making isa oven, the same exact isa going to the oven, and he's just going to put it to make sufganin. But mi lechem v'loy kol lechem. Hashem came on this boinim. If you're Rabbeinu Tam, in order to pater you, according to Rabbeinu Tam, from the Chiyuv Challah, it's not enough lechem mi lechem. It has to be totally mufka from lechem. Meaning, according to Rabbeinu Tam, even if it's in Isa that you're not making lechem, but you're making noodles, but Lamaisa, it still has epis Hashem lechem because Lamaisa, it's an Isa which is darker lihiyos lechem. It's only once you get to a matzah of Rabbeinu Tam, it's ois lechem in Gaza. What's ois lechem? So it's not people food. It's pasha going just to burn it and throw it into your kutach. So it has to be ois lechem in Gatzin, which is kimavur b'toisus. So that's the sibus aptur, like the goyim vadai. So l'chora dvar mechuvan. Now, like we mentioned, Rabbeinu Tam himself has this sheet. The Chiyuv of Torah, when it says Rish Yiseichem, doesn't mean you have to be making bread. You can even be making other things. And Rabbeinu Tam gets stuck on the Gemara Mesachim and in the Mishnah of Tchilas Sufganim. So Rabbeinu Tam is Mechadesh, Bli L'Raka. That's talking about Bli L'Raka. And Bli L'Raka, Taka, even according to Rabbeinu Tam, that's where we have a P'tur. And again, it has to be Tchilas Sufganim, Sufganim. It has to be start with Bli L'Raka and not go in the oven, but rather go into some kind of cooking process or frying process. That's the heter of Bli L'Raka according to Rabbeinu Tam. So, Yesh Loden, what is the P'tur Bli L'Raka? Where did Rabbeinu Tam get that from? Who told Rabbeinu Tam that Bli L'Raka is P'tur Sufganim? Meaning Rabbeinu Tam understood that once you make a Bli L'Raka, that's darker Liyois Pas, and Mela, you're chayiv right away, there's nothing to do about that. It doesn't matter if it's dieted to make Sufganim, das doesn't help. But if it's a Bli L'Raka, let's assume a batter, it might be a soft Isa, but let's just go to the extreme of a batter, nishpach, what the Avineza calls the nishpachim, something that you could even pour. So he assumes that he found an eitz at the pater. What is the p'tur of a Bli L'Raka according to Rabbeinu Tam? So the Torah Sa'aretz declares this tzad. Yeah, what's the p'tur?
That's the Taich of Sukkah. That's how the Taich of Sukkah.
I know what it is, but what's the pshat? What's the hezbollah? So Torah Sa'aretz declares this thing, and he says that maybe the pshat is like this. That when is Rabbeinu Tam Machayv Bli L'Ava? Because it's darker to put in the oven to make bread. But maybe on a batter, it's not darker to put in the oven. Meaning the whole Machayev we're saying according to Bein Tam is that even if your das not to make bread, but why is it normal as you make bread out of this thing? Maybe it's not normal to make a bread out of that. But first of all, it's a shtickle different nevias. This tzad. The Torah Aretz is Bemis Doich this tzad. He thinks it's mashma like that a little bit in the Torah in the Lechem Aretz, but it's different nevias. I mean, when you make a batter to make pancakes, that's called. I mean, the derech of that batter is obviously to make pancakes, which is called making lechem. So he's doich of that side, and he's b'chol he just quotes the Rishonos of the Rishonim. That's meforish in the Rishonim. He quotes from the Sefer Truma. Sefer Truma is meforish that the p'tur and the reason that bli l'raka, that what is the pshat and tchilas sufganit? She says okay, because the Torah says you have to have reish or she has to have gilgal, and since on a bli l'raka there's no kneading, there's no lisha, it's just mixing two things together, the bechisha. That's what the Avnei Nezer brings from the Gemara in Shabbos, from Vav, that when it's bli l'raka, it's bechisha, it's not nechshav lisha. He tells it to the chal. So he does. So that's the p'tur. Says Rabbeinu Tam, very, very nice that it's soifel liyos lechem. So the tanai of lechem, Rabbeinu Tam, the Rash and Rabbeinu Tam of machlokes. What is this tanai of lechem? So the Rash holds you have to be making lechem. Lechem is darko liyos lechem. So this bli l'raka, presumably just like a bli l'ava, you make it in a way, and the derech is, and it's also soifel liyos lechem, meaning you're going to take the batter, you're going to make a pancake. It's soifel liyos lechem. But that's just klapi the Tanai Lechem. It says Rabbeinu Tam, but when you have a bli l'raka, a batter, you don't have, forget about Lechem, let's talk about Reishis or Risisechem. Risisechem means Gilgal. So once you're chasser in the Gilgal, so then there's nothing to talk about. The whole Machayev doesn't start. When you have a Machayev of a Gilgal, then we have to know, are you being Machayev the Tanai Lechem? But if there's no Gilgal, there's no Challah, there's no Mitzvah. The Kach Mefurish in the Sefer Truma, like the Torah brings, and the Kach Matzasi in the Sefer Yosher. Sefer Yosher also explains himself in this P'tur, which is on page 232, I think. 233. Sefer Yashul Bein Tam. Siman Shindal Amen. Tanan Hosam Hasuvganin. Nearly the Hani Suvganin V'Duvshanin. Again, Rabbeinu Tam got stuck because she tells once you make a blila oven, dark liyos lechem, you're chai. So it must be Hani Suvganin V'Duvshanin Blilasan Raka. The Leka Gilgal V'Timtum. Timtum is the oisfir of the Gilgal. Leka Gilgal V'Timtum Umishum Hachi Patiri. Kemavur B'Sefer Truma. We're still coming from the same place. The Teres Aretz only quotes Sefer Truma, but it's Kach Mefurish also in Bein Tam. You're just missing the basic criteria for mitzvah challah. There's a basic criteria. The Torah says Reishis Arisu Seichem is Gilgal, and a bli l'raka is not included in Gilgal. It's not included in. So Mela, the Machayev can't start, and that's Tchilas Sufganin. We still have a Seifa Isa, which could be Machayev. You need to be Tchilas Sufganin, B'Seifa Sufganin. But when we're looking for a Heichatimtza that's called Tchilas Sufganin, Metzias Tchilas Sufganin, says Rabbeinu Tam, that's bli l'raka because you just don't have a kiyum of what it says in the Torah. Then you need Reishis Arisu Seichem. Now. There's another Machayev of Lechem Aretz. That's good for the question of the Mishnah of Tchilasoi Sufganin, meaning you missed the first shlav, and that's why we saw tzad that if you missed the first shlav, you're ois, like the Beit David says, but that's in Amman. And the Beit Tam saying no. And the Halach we Paskin also know that even though if you missed the first shlav, you can chap the shlav of and the Teres Lechem later, just like Tzir of Sal. Al derech Tzir of Sal. There's no Chiyav Chal B'Shas Gilgal because you don't have a shear. Later in Tzir of Sal, that's we learn from Lechem Aretz, like the Rif and the Rama bring.
But the other way, when you have Isa, not al das, then it doesn't go both ways.
Chilasu Isa B'Seif Sufganin?
So even in the Rabbeinu Tam, there are cases where you have Chilasu Isa, but not L'Shem Isa, L'Shem Lechem. So even though
Chilasu Isa, according to Rabbeinu Tam, according to the Mishnah, is always Chayav. You're talking about Isa's Klavim, that's not Chilasu Isa, that's a different story. You're not being Isaac and making food B'chal.
Because we're looking at the final step.
You know, Rabbeinu Tam,
because we're looking at the final step, it's not called Arisu Seichem. The Lamaisa right now, it's full-fledged Isa.
I don't think it's full-fledged. I think that's goof what we're saying. It could be sometimes with the Rabbanim the right, you need a Maisa Muchichem, but it's not. You're not being Isaac. Reish Arisu Seichem, so that's what the Gemara is being Chadash. Rabbeinu Tam Sefer Yosher addresses this issue of Isa's Klavim. And he says, Chutz Rimash Nismait B'Kra, or Nismait B'Gemara, which is that when you're not making food B'Chal, the Torah is not talking to you. So even though you're making a Blila, which is technically a Blila, but Maisa you're not making food, that the parsha of Challah was never talking to. So that is the din of Blila Rakal of Rabbeinu Tam. Now, the Toisa Aretz, so he's mechiach this tzad that the Torah is it doesn't have a shem gilgal, and the Mela the nafkamina that we're getting to is the shayla like this, that since we paskin, even though there's a tzad in the Ramban, we paskin the Ramban, there's a tzad in the Ramban, the bli l'raka is pater and ganzen. We paskin it's chayav, kimavur and sev beis. So the question is, when you're making a chiyuv bli l'raka, meaning a cake or pancakes, whatever, that you have a big enough batter, when is the chiyuv challah chal? Is the chiyuv challah chal from the time that you make the batter, if you have a big thing of batter, or it's only at the end when you make when you actually bake it? So obviously, according to Bein Tam, the Torah starts is ma'arich that according to Bein Tam, there's no chiyuv obviously b'shas bli l'raka, because that's in taich of suvgan. So that's the shame of Turks. You're chaser and gilgal, and kach mavur, like the Torah starts brings from the Sefer HaTruma, kach mavur and Sefer Yosher Bein Tam. This Torah starts also brings from a bunch of different types of sin. That's more like that a ma'aseh bli l'raka is chaser and gilgal. There's no chiyuv challah. The mitzvah satayr doesn't begin until you have either a gilgal or lechem aretz or afiyah or seifa isa. But b'chaser, one of these two tanaim, meaning bli l'raka, which doesn't have afiyah, because before afiyah, and it doesn't have gilgal because there's no gilgal on bli l'raka. So maybe it's not chayiv. And that's what Taisa says in a few places, that on bli l'raka the chiyuv challah comes after the afiyah. Fine. So that would mean that if we're done, that we're making a bli l'raka, making a batter, so it wouldn't be chayiv b'shas that it's batter, it would only be chayiv afterwards. And very often, the Torah points out, very often, unless you're in a factory or bakery, you make a tzir sal, very often once you start pouring the pancakes, even if you have a batter of pancakes that has a shear, but if we'll say there's no shear in the pancakes, in the batter, there's no chiv in the batter because it's bli l'raka. LMI, once after the afiyah there is a chiv, but obviously each pancake doesn't have a shear, so unless you'll make a big tzir sal afterwards, you're not going to have a chiv. Kach yoytze l'chayra, and that's what Torah points out. That's one of his tzirufim l'gabi lekach. We'll get back to the lekach. Yeah. So then the Torah Arts is mefalpel with the very mechush tzad. He says maybe he's malatzad like this. Maybe this hold in that it's mavur in all these types of sin, Bava Kamba, Mitzia, and Chayris, and in the Rabbeinu Tam Sev and all these Rishonim that are mavur. The bli l'raka is chaser and t'nai, and the Mela there's no chiyuv. Maybe that's only according to Beinu Tam. Maybe it's totally in the Machlokes Rash Beinu Tam. According to the Rash, that das, when you make a bli l'ava, your das works to say that this bli l'ava is not chal, and it works to pater the bli l'ava. So maybe if you did by bli l'raka, your das to bake it l'vasayif is enough to be mechayiv right now. Because das l'fi the Rash is a very chashiv. We'll see that base measure the Rash and the Ramban. The das is very chashiv. So memela, just like it's mechayiv, just like it paters you by bli l'ava when you're planning to make sufgan, maybe it could also be mechayiv. So I don't know, it's mashma l'vasoif, it falls off this side. I don't know exactly how he was understanding the machlokes Rashi Beinu Tam to say that this tzad, but l'chayr, l'fi dvareinu, l'fi the pashtus divrei harash, l'chayr this mamish has no shaykhs. Because all the Rash is saying is a chumrah, that it's not enough to make a bli l'ava. In order to be chayiv and challah, it's not enough to have a bli l'ava and a gilgal mitzad atzmai. That has to be a bli l'ava and a gilgal, which is part of the pas making process, that you're actually making lechem, your das is to make lechem, and it's the Torah is mechayiv, the first shlav of when you are making pas. So it's all a question of machlokes Rashi Beinu Tam, how much, what t'nai do you need in your gilgal that it should be chal v'chiyav chal? Which t'nai lechem? But what does it have to do with being mechayiv something that doesn't have gilgal? The question of what the gather of gilgal is, fine. We could be mafalpal, and we could be open to different suggestions. Not like it's mavur in all these rishonim. That maybe bli l'raka does have a shame gilgal, and the Avnei Nezer has a shtickle Torah that certain things have. In certain Ifanim, bli l'raka has a shame gilgal. Certain Ifanim not. We could say shtickle Torah, but what does that have to do with the Rash? The Rash is a different nekuda. It's bli l'ava has to be a kiyum chutz from the Reishu Sechem has to be lechem aretz. Has to be aldas to make lechem. But it has nothing to do with, there's no indication and no reason to believe that the Rash would be chaylik on the etzem hagdara of the mechayiv of challah, which is gilgal, which doesn't apply to bli l'raka, and ve'adarabba. That's exactly what we see. Look, in the Rash's base measures, which is the Ramban, many Rishonim hold that the Ramban's sheet of bli l'raka, he's even more mekel than Rabbeinu Tam. Like we said, the Das Rabbeinu David and the Meiri, they hold in the Rash, in that shita, that since there's no mission about bli l'raka is b'chal mufka. It's not shaykh to mechayiv bichlal. So we paskin, it is enough to be mechayiv, but not worse than Rabbeinu Tam. Thus says live asoif. When you're oife, that's when you're going to have the chiyuv's going to be chal. But to say that, so to say it's tall in shitas Rash, l'chayra doesn't really get started.
Is Sefer Truma go to the Beinu Tam?
Sefer Truma.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, all the Bali Tosfos.
So it's clear.
So it's right. It's going in, that Dershowitz makes that point. He says maybe all the Toysusin also seem to be the Derechal going with Shitz Tam, and all the Toysusin, so maybe it's all Rabbeinu Tam L'Shutasa, and he says this idea that maybe the Das could go back and B'chayv. I'm just saying, Lafi L'chayr, what's the pashtus of the Rash? All he's saying is that clapping the Tanai Lechem, not clapping the Tanai Gilgal. The Tanai Gilgal Fakert, if anything, the base medrash of the Rash and the Ramban, it's not clear B'chal what they hold by Gilgal. Now listen, they might hold that Bli L'Raka is Loishna, like some Achrim B'dai from the Rambam, and it's Taka Nechshav Gilgal. Maybe. But there's no indication of that from their Shita. It just left more open. And if anything, if I care, we have Rabbeinu David that says, Lahedju Das and Ramban, that Bli L'Raka, Behelam any Makar, we should assume it's Pater and Gansen, it can never be Chayv and Challah, Klal Ve'ikr.
Well, the
So-
Maral itself, though, that you brought, isn't it matched that there's no Hashivas of more than a Blue Raka?
I'm not sure, maybe. I think that's similar to the diak they have in the Rambam. So, and I hear there is, I think, some Pesach who say that, because again, it's an open Shaila according to the Ramban and the Rash. So, the Maram Chava has a lashon of like Lo Shna or something like that, being Bila Raka. I think in context, what he means to say is that Lo Shna, that it's going to be Chal P'tur Milachatchila. I mean, it's the same dinim, that you have to have Aldas to make, pas, and the Chiyuv only comes when it's Aldas to make pas. But Lagabi the Chiyuv right now, Blila Ava Blila Raka, I don't think that's his discussion, whether it's Chal right now. He's talking about Lagabi the Rashi Shita, about later. Ayin Shom and Echanami. I think there is, maybe in the Maram Chalava, we have a diak, we have Mokim to say like that, there's a side in the Rambam like that maybe Blila Raka is not Ma'al Murrid. But the Pashtus is, so I'm just saying we're coming to ask the Shaila. It's a very big plea that all our friends point out, is that the Poiskim, the Bali Shulchan Aruch, don't tell us the din by a Blila Raka that you're going to be Oifel of Asoif, which is Chayv, when? So I just think that when you have Dvarim Furashim, that Blila Raka might be Potter and Gansen according to the Rashi and Ramban. And according to Rabbeinu Tam, it says Lahedya and the Truma and Rabbeinu Tam Alein and Sefer Yosher and all the places in that it's not Chayv B'Shas Blila Raka. So L'chayr L'halacha, we have to assume the Pashtus, Pushi Pluk to Lamali, and it has nothing to do with Machlokes Rashi Rabbeinu Tam L'chayr Kipshutai. And the Mela Blila Raka, I think L'halacha, based on what's Mufurish and Rav Rishonim, is Potter Michala. And there's no, and it's Chaser and Gilgal, and there's no Lo Matzino or Machlokes about that Nakuda, what the Chalois Gilgal is, and Tola Avnei Nezer made some pilpul about maybe certain things. Yeah, it's Shem Gilgal, not Shem Gilgal, but the Pashut Rishonim is that it's Chaser and Shem Gilgal. That's also what's Mavur in the Mishnah Rishonah. Mishnah Rishonah in Parak Aleph Halacha Daldir, he's going in the Ramban. The Ramban's Kasha, that the Ran brings from Gilgal B'Shas Hektish. We'll leave that for now, we'll go to the Pratim. But the Mishnah Rishonah also says for Davar Pashut. He actually is asking on the Ramban for that reason. But he says for Davar Pashut that the Blila Raka is for sure Chaser and Gilgal is no shaykhs to any Gilgal. And the Mela, there's no kasha from having a chiyuv b'shas Blila Raka. And the Mela batter is potter. And Memela Mashiyotzim is Elochal Mastoif, that when you have a batter, even if there's a shear in the batter, you're allowed to taste the batter. There's no reason to be mafresh from that batter. And Umeidach Kisa, after you bake it, is when the chiyuv is chal. But in a chanami, you have to have a shear when that chiyuv is chal. So in some svarim, it's if we're not like so. Some svarim say that because of this tliya between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, they go for this tliya Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, and they have shtadim maybe the diavad l'chatchila the chash shichachal. So I'm just saying what's the pashtus and here is daiti, and that is that alpi what's mefurish in all the rishonim, and we have tzad that Blila Raka b'chlal might not be a chiyuv according to Kav Yochel the base medrash Pashkim Rashi and Ramban. And we're just taking over the chiyuv Rabbeinu Tam. We shouldn't take a bigger chiyuv than that. There's no chiyuv b'shas Blila Raka. V'loy matzinu mefurish anywhere except for maybe your Advaz. Not sure about that yet. V'loy matzinu mefurish that's b'chlal shaykh and any not Rishon, not Achron, not anyone. And I hear there's a tzaddik in Maram Chalava and there's maybe a stimas Harambam. V'chahena. That's mefurish.
Somebody took from the Isa.
Before.
Yeah, before.
So unless you made a special tonight, we're going to learn Shin Chavzayim, we'll see about making tonight. But let's say a person was mafresh, he took a little bag of batter and he threw it in the garbage and kacha. So what's the question?
Now, after it's baked, can you make a
How convinced are you?
Yeah, that's it. I think you can taste it. I really think it's mamish nothing. And I think we're talking about Challah Midrabbanan, and even Be'eretz Yisrael where it's more chamer, but I don't see why we're mechuyev to be male al das la halacha. Derech Pilpul, we can mitzadeh and thing like in Derech Hamun, he doesn't speak it out. Just like he's mitzayin, kamakter for Davar Pashut. If you just read the thing with the whatever it's called, the Mishnah Berurah with the Sharatzian, the Derech Hamun with the Sharatzian, he's like mavliya b'toicher that it's like shtickle. This tliya of Rashi Rabbeinu Tam, it's a pella. What does it have to do with the Rashi Rabbeinu Tam? Lematzinu v'lo re'inu, such a tliya. And it was one side the Teres Haaretz came over. The Teres Haaretz at the end of the day he proves he has another raya from the Ramban. he thinks from the Ramban's Shita Lagabe Hektish, he has another Rai B'das Ramban, that you can never be Mechayev, Bli L'Raka, or anything that is a Terus of Ganim, with Machshav Ba'alma, you can never be Mechayev. And it's Mefurish like that in 5 Rishonim. So like, in 5 Rishonim it's Mefurish that it's not Chayev, and in a couple of Rishonim it's Mefurish that it's Potter and Gantin forever. So to think that we have to be Ma'al Atzad, to me, that's what it sounds like. But I am a Hasid, so I see that in a lot of the Svarim it says not like that. It says that maybe with the Evid you could, or you shouldn't make a bracha, you start making Tanaim, so maybe we'll see a little bit about the Tanaim, we'll see more color in Shin Chav Zayin. But halach l'maisa, to something to be mafri, let's at least go l'chomer. Yeah, it's easier to go l'chomer. If someone has a big batter, and he's mafresh only from the batter, and then you make a tzir of sal, or you make a big pan, that's a shir chiyuv, so you're mamish being machal tevel, you're being oichal tevel. That's halacha. I'm saying I understand what it's thought. I'm just saying halacha l'maisa to be mafresh from something that doesn't have a gilgul, because 5 Rishonim said this does not have a chiyuv challah, and then you bake it, which Shulchan Aruch says has a chiyuv challah, and you're not mafresh challah from the davar ofui, it's mamish michshol name. Fine. Now, since we're talking about the cakes, that's where this is all that's in the game. You're making big sponge cakes. You also pancakes. It's mamish hard to get at sea or socks. You're making little things, but you're making big cakes, big sponge cakes, big. So the Maisa the Avnei Nezer I mentioned on the Mar Mekaymis, it's in Yerdei Tafir Gimel. He has a shtickle Torah about what we're going to discuss now, which is Mishnah Dalet. We can go back to Mishnah Dalet. The Mishnah it says it's a Torah called Duvshonin, Skritin, and that's amazing. So there's a whole shtickle Torah. What's just very chashuv to me is the end of that shtickle. And it's this before in many Mekaris. The Avnei Nezer says in Oisiyah Beis, the Tafkim Oisiyah Beis, after this whole shtickle Torah, that big mafresh, it could be the Avnei Nezer holds on all. Yeah, to take off from the batter. Should like it right. Uncle Panim, Avnei Nezer was like the Gadol Adar, right? Rav, yeah, Sakhachav. It says that he sent, I guess his Gabbai or his son or whatever it is, his son was Chashiv also, he sent to the bakery and he asked them, by the way, I'm handling the sugi of lekach, when are you mafresh from the lekach? The lekach was this kind of sponge cake, not what we call a kichel. Shalachti achrei moichrei voifei lekach l'shoyel, ne'im asay loichim chal lekach, sheboichshim bekaf, the real rak. Im koydem achakach, amru li shemei oilam lo yilachum chal. They didn't know what he was talking about b'chal. You want us to take chal off the lekach? Like crazy. Rak mi lekach shloshim biyad, just the little ones that they actually lost the blila ava. And then he says even that, the blila ava was a chiddush to them. They used to never take off even from the blila ava, it says in the Hemshech over here. The Kach Mavur in Shuvas Tzemach Tzedek, Reish Lamed Vav, and the Torah's Arts quotes that minig. That's the minig that the Shulchan is referring to. The Beis Ephraim quoted Pesach Tshuva and Sifkat and Beis. He quotes a minig that they were taking from the Lekach B'li Bracha. So meaning, at least they were taking off. But B'li Bracha is very upset about that because he holds it sleeve. The Avnei Nezer Agav was very upset. He I assume he was like the Rav Machshir on this bakery. I assume he ate this stuff at the Chasinas, but Reish Lamed Vav. The minute was not to take off from cake. Meaning like this, and this brings us to the shaila of Chutzram, the Sufgan of Bli L'Raka of Sif Aleph and Mishnah Dalet. That it seems that like for a few hundred years there were a lot of kehilas, and it seems like people knew what they were talking about. The Avnei Nezer time is that the bakery was wrong; they were just like being over yisurim. But there's a halach in Shulchan Aruch. Ein chiyuv challah ela b'lechem. Lafika chasuf gonin. Dahainu rakam ma'asuim kesuvim. V'ha duvshonin. V'ha skritin. V'him gonim mitvash. A little bit of a mix up in Shulchan Aruch, but duvshonin. Different types of cakes, pastries, and different types of things are p'turim min hachallah. And the Shach says, Kloimar b'isa shu'uy lovu l'idei lechem, because you need lechem, which means it's chayav isa has to be roy lovu l'idei lechem. And stam lechem einu el osim v'kemach u'mayim u'kiyah gavno, normal bread-like things. But if you're making pastries and lekach, that's pater michala. So it seems like for a few hundred years and in many places, this was the minute. They just assumed that this is a thing called sufgan, and it's pater from challah. And very good. Yes, they never got to sif big. Exactly.
I mean, Shonin, you could say that it lost shape.
Now the Gedulei Hektish is the first one. He like Mount reads it very geschmack einsham. The first Gedulei Hektish is in Chavtes, and it has the copies. I'm sure some more copies. Very chashuv to and that's the Mikdash Ma'at, that's Kedushin. So he's the one who does it. And he says it's not just the Mishnayos, because there's two Mishnayos. Mishnah Dalet says Sufgan and Rapata, and then Mishnah Hayes is a whole story about Tchilasai, V'Soifai, Bli L'Raka. There's a different thing called Sufgan and Duvshonin, different types of pastry-like things are potter. It's like there, it's Gar Mashma, and it's a B'Zunder Heter, Kishala Atzmai, without boiling it and betagging, even if you bake it in the oven. And Zok there, it's come out first like that, and Tur, and Shulchan Aruch. Right, so again, like if we're wondering where this crazy minute came from that the Avnei Nezer was so upset about, that's where it came from. Because that's what he's pointing at. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch seems to say Sif Aleph. And the Torah is even more before, without reading all the Lashonos. That you need lechem, and if you don't have lechem, it's pater, and that's Sufganim, and Dufshanim, and it's Kritim. Sif Beis, another din, Lila Raka, says the Gilei Hakdish, after pointing out this beautiful diak in the Mishnah, in Shulchan Aruch, Yef Shalem Rakim. You just can't say that, because we have a Gemara, B'sachim Lamed Zayin. Gemara, B'sachim Lamed Zayin quotes this Mishnah, Bryce, the Mishnah, the same, these halachas of Sufgan and Dufshanim. And the Alzen Nemar, the whole machlokes, the whole sukkah, we all saw, Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, that these very dufshanim, these very lekich, honey cakes, whatever you want to call them, the whole P'tur was, says the Gemara, why are they pater? Shalkish says, ilfis. We pass in ilfis, okay, nefes b'chama. So you see, these very dufshanim, which are the honey cakes we're talking about, something called derech zu, it's some kind of honey cake. The only reason they were pater, halacha, is because they were baking them in the sun. It's before if they baked them in the oven, even though they were dufshanim, they were niloish bidrash. So the Gedul Hektish says like a whole shtuk of the Yef Shloimer came, and Elamai was Diber B'Hoive, the Mishnah, and Shulchan Aruch Diber B'Hoive, but obviously it's all Talim, the Klalim, and the Pratim of Sif Beis, which is that in order to be pater from Challah, it has to be Lila Raka, it goes into liquid, it's baked in liquid, but if you have the sweetest of the sweet honey cakes, Lila Raka, but you put it in the oven, so that's Zayfa Isa, like what are you going to do? That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Fine. So that's the Gedul Hektish is Mal on that side, he says the Mashmos. The Avnei Nezer in Tafik Gimel is going on this question. The Shoyl, who was his father, asked him this question. And he says, I'm also niskash with this question. He says, I have the same problem as you. And the reason me and you are having this problem, Tata, is because Sif Aleph and Sif Beis sound like two different Sifim. That's what Avnei Nezer says. He writes right in the beginning of that tshuva. But he says it's not the case, and then he goes on to explain, he has his own shtickle to explaining why Shulchan Aruch chose this lashon, didn't this lashon. But again, Kederach the Gedul Hektish, we can't accept the heter that's against the Gemara. The question starts. The question starts with the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan seems to, on some level, it's still unclear to me exactly what the Aruch HaShulchan wants, but on some level, he seems to be mekayim the pashtus of Shulchan Aruch, Kedarka B'Kodesh, and what was probably the minig in the Varnik also, or wherever it was that lekach was pater, and that's what the Aruch HaShulchan is coming to say. Lekach. That the Beis Ephraim was so upset about, and Avnei Nezer was screaming about, and all these poskim were saying, how could you have such a minhag, you have to take, and even believe bracha the Beis Ephraim. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, pater michal. Why? So up there, because it's bezunder heter, k'mavur b'Shulchan Aruch. The Rishonim say that not lekech, Sufganin was bli l'raka, but it's not totally being bli l'raka. I mean, it has these medayik from the Hemshech of Shulchan Aruch, that there's two bezunder heterim. There's a heter of bli l'raka, and there's a heter that's sometimes shayachim by bli l'ava. Now, what's clear from the Aruch HaShulchan is he's saying you see there's a heter bli l'ava, even if you don't boil it in water, or boil it in oil. That's the l'chayra ein sham. And mainly he says, so what's the pshat? How could you have a bli l'ava? Dufshanim. It's a honey cake. So it sounds, and he says Aruch HaShulchan, even if it was a bli l'ava, and it sounds like even if you didn't boil it. It talks about frying it in a little bit of butter, certain types of things, different types of foods that were common to them. But it sounds like you did not have the heter. And Alpha Pickens up there, it's butter. Why? It's up there, just like it says in Shulchan Aruch, Ein Chiyav Challah, El B'Lechem. These things are not lechem. So Frek Aruch HaShulchan, the Pesach Tshuva brings this kasha. What do you mean? It says later in Shulchan Aruch, even Dvash. Dvash is one of the Shiva Mashkim. Shiva Mashkim is chayiv in. If you're lush with Shiva Mashkim, you're chayiv in Challah. It says Aruch HaShulchan, no. It doesn't have to be a Moitzi Lechem in the Aretz. You could use Shiva Mashkim, it could be Mezoyins, but it has to be something that's B'Teiras Lechem, meaning something that's more like L'choira. I don't know if it's Habal Kali Mamish, it's like a Paskisnin. Paskisnin means it has Teiras Pas, Teiras Lechem. It's for Svia, you eat it to fill you up. You eat it for breakfast, like a muffin or something like that. Or what we generally is more like Ugat Shmarim, like yeast cakes that have regular good Geshmak Isa and they just have a lot of sweets on it. But it's up there. So the Aruch HaShulchan, check the history, he's mechal between lekech and kichel. Okay, get it straight. Lekech and kichel. Kichel, chayav. Lekech, pater. Kichel, sagt that was for Svia. It was also some kind of mezainis. And it can have dvash and all kinds of things. So I assume it's more kind of like a muffin of some sort that you can eat for Svia. It's a mezainis. Hashem King's up there, the lekech, that was a very, very sweet thing. That was only to help wash down the yain saraf. And it wasn't even for Svia b'chlal. But we would look at it more like mamish, a pastry dough, eclair, different types of things that are very, very sweet. That's not shaykh svir. You can have a little bit to be toyin, whatever, but if you have more than that, it's not going to fill you up. It's just not too sweet. It says Aruch HaShulchan that doesn't have a shem lechem. And that's the p'tur of this Sif Aleph, this mission of Sufganin and Now, Obviously, the kasha is, it's not clear to me. And the Aruch HaShulchan addresses, he brings the Gemara Pesachim Lamed Zayin. He brings it to really ask a kasha on the Rambam Shita, which he thinks we don't pass like the Rambam. It's a whole complication, Shita the Rambam. But he addressed it, he was aware of Pesachim Lamed Zayin, very clear from Aruch HaShulchan. He brings it over there today. And the question is, how did he buy ois, a new heter, from, I looked around, I was assuming one of these farms, someone should have to say something, but everyone somehow ignores from what I saw, I'm just ignoring Aruch HaShulchan's appellate. Gedol HaPoiskim, I'm saying, he did from that door, and he patters Mamash for Dor Pashid, and everyone's like ignoring it. Open up a safe from Hachas Challah, and bring the Aruch HaShulchan, it's like, okay. What?
No respect.
What's that question of respect? Just irresponsible. I don't know. Can't really say, but okay. Anyway, income off.
So this ends up being.
So 1 second. So my question. So what do we do with this Gemara? So I don't know. It's Tzarachin. Ulai. Rabbi Nezer, he's Mavliya, not like this, but Ulai. So when the Gemara says Skritin, Sufganin, and Dovshanin, and says the Petura of how they're baked, maybe that's only referring to not the whole list, but to the things that's totally in how they bake. Because Mashal Sufganin, most of say it's because it's Bli Laraka. So maybe in Bli Laraka, which is totally in the dough and how you bake it, so then maybe that's the Din Lagabi Sufganin, and it's Skritin, which are Kik and Dakin. Maybe Dovshanin, the Gemara doesn't mean to include Dovshanin, but Dovshanin or Mamish made a very sweet thing, and it's just for Tin Ba'alma. So maybe we could laugh off the Gemara a little, and when the Gemara quotes that whole list, it means the things that are totally in Afiyah. So what exactly is this Afiyah, which is Mafkiya the Shem Lachem, Achoik Zmirich Shalach, Dovshanin, which are Niloishin Midvash, but Oifen, that it's not a steer to the din of Mei Perish because it's Mamish a sweet, it's a pastry, it's a parperis. So maybe, I'll just point out that L'chayr the Aruch HaShulchan wasn't the only one. The Marsham, Lloyd brings us in the same. Marsham and Tzimutafin Zayin, it's brought down Das Torah. So he has a whole arichus there about Challah from matzahs. And Teichadei, he says, wait a second, our matzahs are butter from Challah. We have a whole complication, it's your Sal, what happens, you forget, it's like, yeah, our matzahs are butter from Challah. Because, according to one parish in the Rav, Sufgan and Rakik and Dakin. And our Challahs are Rakik and Dakin. Our matzahs are all Rakik and Dakin, they're butter from Challah. So what's the question? You've got to be out to base also, this is Marsham. Chashulchan, Marsham, we're talking about, big question. Aleph. Let's say you're kicking. Oh, I'm saying you're going to Aruch HaShulchan. I'm asking where the Marsham is coming from. So Reb Loy brings this Marsham in Perek Daled Ois Beis in the Sefer Leken Omer, and parentheses it's Tzarachin because it's Sefer Isa Kimavur B'Sev Beis. That's all it is to say. So, okay. So I don't know how the Marsham learned this Mishnah. It's like a Ha'aretz Chachiyah, but it sounds what?
What does it mean? What kind of matzah does he have?
I don't know how he understood Rakik and Dakin. We'll have to talk about raps at a different time. I don't know, but he understood there was some kind of metzias. He was talking, I think, about machine matzah. I guess they were like very thin, the Einov, and so it's out there that it's what's it called now. So Tzarachin, Marsham Tzarach HaShulchan. I just want to be a sign like this that even if we cannot, l'chayra, I don't know what to say. L'chayra, we cannot boy ois a new heter from Sefara. We have to accept, as far as I know, the heter I'm saying the hezber that I'm saying the Gemara that the Gemara is talking about ilfis and mechama is only lagabe sufganim but not lagabe dovshanim. K'tzas ulai yoyser mik'tzas tzarchin. I was looking around trying to find someone to say something, but ulai tzarchin. Okay, talking about challah derabanan, it was chayr the minute. Even if we can't accept the marsham and the what's it called and the Aruch HaShulchan. Maisa, even if their makar is not correct, their halacha may very well be correct. I just want to be mitzayeh and pasha without going tarichas, we're out of time really, and that is the din of trisa. That's the first Gemara. Less choylek is the din of trisa. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch. There's two Gemara in the Gemara. One is if you make like a very, very, very thin, like crepe or wafer-like isa, even though you put it on a hot thing without mashka, so it's soifa isa. But since it's very, very thin, even though it's soifa isa, potter from Challah. That's sifei. Trisa and isa shblosa raka. It happens to be raka. V'shoif chenasal akira. That's soifa isa, but it's mispashi very thin potter. Then the Ramah brings lechen hadranke, whatever the other case of the Gemara, batik, which is the first that it's talking about blila ava, because it's batik that you put onto a shpud. You stick it onto a shpud, and it's like a rotisserie as a. You moishchan say bebeitzim or b'shemen, or b'mei peirs potter. Why is it potter? It's a Gemara. I don't have any tightness, but what's the pshat? It's a blila ava. So we have two cases. One is trisa is soifa isa because you baked it on a pan. Lechem hadranka is tchilasa isa. It's a blila ava, and they're both pater. Why? What's the heter? So if I was the Aruch HaShulchan, when he gets his halach, he's like, I don't know what these things are. We never heard of such things. 100 years. He's like not interested in talking about it. But this the Einai, is this Xeris HaKosov? It's like we don't have a pasuk about trisa. We don't have a pasuk and a drasha and a sefri about lechem adranka. The pshat is even you see an exception to the rule, which is also a rule seveh, that if you have something which even though it's either tchilasa isa, which is a mechayev, leave off, soifa isa because you poured it onto a hot pan, which is hirsiach, which is a regular din of soifa isa, and it's potter. Why? Because it's gantin completely mufka from being pas and lechem and even pas kissing. There's no shem lechem. It's totally mufka. So now you have to be very careful how you apply this to other cases. So Moshe, he brings over there, I think Rabloy, they talk about, I think this is a Pasha application, it's not much matushtal, but waffles, not waffles, kids call waffles, wafers, bafla, yeah, wafers, very, very, very thin, so even though it's sifli, so they pour it onto some kind of pan that bakes it, that's Pasha to Trisa, right? So I'm just saying, when so I don't know. So if you're talking about a muffin or whatever it is, in the Aruch HaShulchan's world, where he was machal, he was talking about something at Pasha, it was a total parperes, some kind of total egg clear, flaky dough, something that was total just a sweet and a parperes. So even if we can't buy ois the din, or it's a big doichag, at least to buy ois the din from where he buy ois from, yesh la'ayin tuva, mitzad this halacha. Yeah, asher al kain, when you're making things that, when you're making a challah, a batch that has a shear of these types of sweets and cookies and cakes, so yesh la'ayin tuva, if you make a bracha on such challah, so minchas yitzchak, and they quote it over here in Chelik Ches, it says you shouldn't make a bracha on hafresh challah, even if you have a shear, at least jumping out of the seat, that's what I'm waiting for. So you cannot make a bracha. There was a minhag not to take at all. So I understand. The Beis Ephraim was very upset that they weren't making a bracha on the lekach. But l'maisa, there was such a minhag. But even without the minhag, even if that was a minhag toast, how are we magder the din trisa? So it sounds like the Aruch HaShulchan is coming from Sif Aleph, that the Haggadah of just being ois lechem, something that's glory that tugs that there's no shayas. Ubitzir of the fact that that's also a whole thing in Teres Arts. We'll see in other simanim. There are many Rishonim. Now Allah it's in Shin Chavdala Chayla. There are many Rishonim that hold that if any tavshul you make, that it doesn't have roiv dog in its potter. It's a sheet of the Ramban, of the Rashba. Allah we pass out like that. But that's another tzad that the Tzemach Tzedek was trying to figure out what's with this lekach minhag. There's another tzad he says is that these lekachs he tainas mamish, it's bottle in the sugar and the eggs and the oil. You can barely taste any dogon. So Teres Arts says, I don't know, our lekach you could taste the dogon, but whatever it is, you have a very spongy, soft chocolate cake that has a tipa of even if it has a shear, because it's a huge batter, but you mamish can't taste the dough. That's another tzad to pat from Challah Mamela, and all these types of pastry-like foods, the chiyuv of Russia, which should be a beli bracha.